the street, don't wink, don't wave, don't try to tease me with your smile. Forget about it. If we chance to meet somewhere, don't think it's 'cause I'm trying to reconcile.
You think so? Okay. All righty. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for that musical prelude there. Greatly appreciate that. What a treat. Welcome to Houston Oasis, everybody. My name is Maryanna Sokol. I am a member of your board of directors, and it's always wonderful to spend Sunday mornings amongst a lot of friends and folks who are here to learn, meet each other, and just have a good time. Obviously we have a number of core values that you can see here to my right. One of the ones that generally appeals very much to me is the meaning comes from making a difference. We can't always influence everything in our lives, but we can influence some things. And like I said the last time I was MC, the way you give up the most power is by not realizing that you have any. You do have some power, and I certainly hope that we'll use today to make each other's lives a little bit better. So we have a fantastic program for y'all today. You already heard a little bit, oops, what did I just do? A little bit of the music. We'll be hearing from Tranchilla and Allen, Houston-based singer-songwriters and instrumentalists. Tom Tranchilla and Buddy Allen perform a wide variety of country, folk, americana, ragtime, blues, both originals and covers. Tom specializes in fingerstyle 6 and 12-string acoustic guitars. I struggle with a six string, so how you do the 12th one is kind of impressive. And vocals and string wizard Buddy specializes in guitar, mandolin, fiddle, banjo, just about everything with strings. So, well, why don't we just let them go ahead and pull some of their strings here for us this morning. You all want to go ahead?
Well, thanks for having us. We played here once a couple years ago, and really appreciate bringing us back. We're going to stick with mostly originals today, and some stuff hopefully you're familiar with. We change everything around, though.
We do. We never play the same exactly twice. You know, it just doesn't, not for us.
And typically not the way it was originally written.
And
We
that
try
too.
to make it interesting.
We do. So what are we doing here?
Thank you. Anybody recognize that song? So we have some old Dave Brubeck fans in the house, right?
Yeah, apparently.
But Buddy, Dave Brubeck didn't write that song. Who wrote that song?
Paul Desmond. I think.
Paul Desmond, the keyboard.
Yeah.
What was he, the sax player or somebody?
Paul Desmond.
Played in
He was a
Brubeck's
sax player,
band.
yeah.
Anyway, we're going to play another cover song for you again, completely rearranged. Hope you like this piece.
What are we up to here?
Wonderful World.
Let's see. Thank you, Alan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tom and Buddy. Quick question. Is there any place we can find you online or?
Well, we used to play all over town, but during the pandemic, most of our places we played closed.
Oh, okay. Well, that's too bad. We'll try to have you back here occasionally so we can be sure to keep in touch with you. That was quite the treat. And next, so today, usually for those of you who come on a regular basis, you know, we oftentimes do a community moment that's about 10 minutes or less, then coffee break, and then we'll do a main talk that's probably more like 25 to 30 minutes or so, or 20 minutes. We're going to do things a little bit different today. We're going to have the first part of a longer talk first, then we're going to do coffee break, then we're going to continue with the same talk, Q&A, and you know, things will run. Anyway, I am incredibly happy to bring Maryanna Sokol this time to this side of the stage. We have all seen her actually perform for us as a musician, and about a year ago, I want to say, we got to talking. And you know, she had mentioned that she does music therapy. And I thought that was really, really fascinating. And today she is here to talk to us a little bit about her work. So what's going to happen now is that we're going to learn about the world of music therapy through a career retrospective with Maryanna Sokol, whose work as a board-certified music therapist spans 18 years, 3 states, and countless settings and individuals. From neuro-rehabilitation in the Texas Medical Center to dementia care in Manhattan's Upper East Side to a pediatric ICU in California's Central Valley, the power of music remains the foundation for a unique and passionate career path. Maryanna will educate us about music therapy through a little career retrospective, share a few client stories, and talk about how music can be used therapeutically in different settings. Help me in welcoming Maryanna to the stage.
Hi, thanks, Verena. Hi, everyone. It's going to be very strange for me to stand here still and talk. Is it okay if I grab the mic and, oh, yeah. I'm used to having a guitar. Thanks. I'm used to having a guitar and moving my body around a little, so I'm glad I chose such a robust, hilarious photo of myself because this has been up for the last 10 minutes. Kept looking at it like, yeah, of course I chose the most ridiculous photo I could find. Anyway, music therapy, a career and a calling. I'm Maryanna Sokol. This is a photo of me at my most recent, it's actually Creative Arts Therapy Month, and I didn't even realize that when we booked this. So it's like, yeah, no, I totally meant to do that. So that's, I work for Houston Methodist Hospital as a creative arts therapist, and we do little creative arts awareness tables, and that's what that photo is from. All right. So I get asked this question at least 50 times a week. So what is music therapy? And the simplest definition I've learned to give people, it's an evidence-based clinical application of music to drive non-musical outcomes within a therapeutic relationship. And I tried to choose photos, so this is Caroline. I worked with her for about 10 years of her life until she died, and her family sent me these photos and are very honored for them to be used. I chose these photos to represent a therapeutic relationship because that is the key element of music therapy. The evidence-based clinical application is important, but having a safe therapeutic relationship and a trained professional that understands how powerful music is, both positively and sometimes adversely, is so important. So we always try to include the within a therapeutic relationship, though the evidence-based is important too. So some clinical domain examples. As you can imagine, music is extremely versatile as a tool. I just thought of a few. This is not an exhaustive list. Dementia and memory care. I think a lot of people have seen clips from Alive Inside or maybe have seen the movie. We know that music can prompt memory in people who are suffering from dementia, Alzheimer's, things like that. Pediatric and adult medicine, there are so many different subgroups of medicine that really, in almost all of them, we have found a way to use music therapeutically to find significant clinical outcomes. Physical and neurologic rehab. This is actually where I started my career. I started my internship at TIER, Memorial Hermann, working with brain injury rehab, stroke, and I was using a very specific type of music therapy called neurologic music therapy, which is, it uses the intrinsic properties of music very clinically to basically trick the brain into helping the body do or regain skills, you know, build neuroplasticity, regain speech or mobility after a brain injury or a stroke, etc. Hospice, palliative, and end-of-life care. We're going to talk a little bit about that later. I have an example of something that I do for families when a patient is at end of life. Behavioral health, I think most people get behavioral health because people tell me all the time, oh, I know music is powerful because when I'm anxious, I have a playlist. And honestly, I work for Houston Methodist Hospital. We have like a research institute. We have all this data. Honestly, in the ICU, I also use music to help people, use playlists even to help people feel less anxious. So I get that. Special education and alternative learning. Forensic and criminal psychology. I actually have a colleague friend who has been working at the state prison with violent offenders, murderers, people on death row, for 20 years, and she said she never wants to go anywhere else. She said the way that the criminal justice system and the way that the prison system works, that the music therapy is so vital for these incarcerated guys. She's working in the male side. So, and that it's just, she never would have thought, but now she's been there 20 years. Pre, peri, and postnatal care, including neonatal ICU. NICU music therapy is another, so I was talking about neurologic music therapy over here. NICU music therapy is another, it's a whole school of music therapy that has been developed with tons of research over the last 30-ish years, and it's very like clinical, scientific, by the book, because preemies are so fragile. Any amount of stimulation is, you have to be so knowledgeable and so careful with those preemies. And so that's another one that is, it does not really take the emotional side as much into account. It's very much like we're using the intrinsic properties of music to do something very scientific here. Autism and sensory processing disorders. A lot of people have spoken to me about, oh, I have a friend or my kiddo is autistic, and man, music has really been helpful for them. And then psychosocial and emotional well-being, which I feel like is different from behavioral health because psychosocial and emotional and interpersonal skills, you may not be suffering with behavioral health issues, but it still may be a struggle. So we have a lot of group and individual settings, ways to use music to help with interpersonal skills, psychosocial, emotional, different groups in the community who may benefit from just coming together once a week and just like engaging with each other musically, and they may not have any diagnoses. It may just be something, you know, nice. All right. Next. So the education and certification requirements, I always like to go over this toward the beginning because most people don't realize, a lot of people in the hospital still think that I'm either a volunteer or that I studied nursing and decided to bring music in. But actually, in order to practice music therapy as a licensed music therapist, you have to have either an undergrad or a graduate degree in music therapy because it's such a comprehensive education. You have to study so many different things. Field experience internship, 1,200 hours minimum. Then you get board certified with an exam. And then you choose you can either go for a master's or you can go for specialized designations and training, such as the NICU music therapy or the neurologic music therapy. And then we have a 5-year recertification cycle, so just continuing education, 100 hours every 5 years. And then annual board and license fees, because every profession has them, right? And okay, so my music therapy journey, My parents are musicians. They met at Berklee College of Music in Boston. And which is why I recognize Dave Brubeck from the first, not even the second measure, like the first measure immediately. They are jazz musicians. They were alumni reps for Berklee for many years, and I was working in junior high. I was volunteering in a special ed classroom, and I was thinking I either wanted to be a special ed teacher or a music teacher or like a performer. And my mom, Berklee opened a music therapy program in the late 90s, and my mom came home from an alumni rep meeting and was like, oh my God, you are never gonna believe what I heard about today. And I was 13, and that was it for me. I like to tell people music therapy is the only direction I've ever had. It's the only long-term decision I've ever made and stuck to my entire life. Like I've been married and divorced. I've been very religious, and I've deconstructed. I've moved all over the country. But music therapy has always sort of been my center and the direction that I'm going. And I will say, I think I mentioned in the very beginning of my career, I was working very clinically, scientifically, doing neurologic music therapy, taking data, not really taking the emotional side into account because I didn't have to for where I was working. And then I moved to New York City and worked there for about 3 years. I moved back to Houston, worked in a completely different area for a few years, then moved out to California and worked in a completely different area of the field for another 3 years. And now that I'm back in Houston, now that I'm in an ICU where sometimes the medical clinical side is very helpful, and other times you're dealing with families who are losing their loved one, or you're dealing with someone who knows they're about to die, and you're the only person who comes in and talks to them. And so now I think, almost 20 years into my career, I think that I've finally been able to sort of marry the clinical, data-driven side with the emotional, spirit side. And so I think that covers most of my journey. I think I should also mention I've been through my own, I've had a lot of depression, anxiety, things that I've worked through in my history. And I think I used to think it was silly when we would talk about things like, oh, songwriting for self-expression. It's like, well, duh, that seems so silly. And then, growing up, becoming an adult, living in the world, having so many experiences, suffering from depression, anxiety. As a songwriter, I had to sort of wake up and realize, at some point, oh, you're really helping yourself. You're really helping yourself stay alive just by writing these songs. Oh, songwriting is really powerful. So I think I was really proud of myself when I bridged that gap between you have to be clinical and data-driven versus, no, you can express yourself and it can be really helpful. So that, I think, is succinctly my music therapy journey. And then here we have places I've worked. So I've worked almost everywhere you can work as a music therapist. I have not worked in public schools. I have not worked in the prison system, and I have not worked in inpatient behavioral health. Otherwise, if a music therapist has done it, I've done it, which at this point in my life is crazy because, when you start out in a field that not a lot of people know about, you think it's going to be, you might not find a lot of jobs. You might not, and wow. So I started out with the brain injury and rehab. I did both hospital and in-home. I worked for a company called Rehab Without Walls, where the rehab therapist team, a comprehensive therapy team, would go into the patient's homes and then help the families set the homes up for the patient, help them reintegrate into the community. My very first job out of college was in the DeBakey VA Medical Center extended and memory care unit, and I worked there for about 3.5 or 4 years. I have done groups and individuals with a lot of community organizations. I just listed Easter Seals and HAPS. That's Houston Area Parkinson's Society. Those are probably the two most prominent that I think people know about. I think HAPS might be my favorite organization I've ever worked with my entire career. I think if you guys don't know about them, you should get them in here for a talk. They're one of the most together community organizations. The way that they have transportation for all their, everyone signs up, it's free to join, they have transportation, they have family and caregiver support, they have all this stuff. They really taught me how a community can band together to really make positive impacts. And then they also, using music therapy to help families who are affected by Parkinson's. I've done a lot of private contract and in-home therapy. Some was private, just myself. Some was through like class waivers or state programs that I'm not sure will continue to exist, but they did, and I hope they will continue. I've worked in an outpatient comprehensive therapy clinic for kids and families dealing mostly with autism and behavioral disorders, but also sensory processing, other disorders. That's when I moved out to California. I worked full-time in a clinic. I saw some really cool things over there. Then I moved over to a pediatric hospital in the Central Valley in Fresno, California. Now I'm working primarily in adult ICU and a little bit of overflow general medical care at Houston Methodist. I am sometimes working with childbirth center and in the NICU. I've mostly worked with couples who are experiencing late-term fetal demise and working on processing through that. And specialized in adapted education. Like I said, I've never worked in a public school, but I've worked in a lot of very small, privately funded schools for kids that don't have, that kind of fell through the cracks of what public schools could provide for them. And then I just put the cities. I've mostly worked in Houston, but I've done a little bit of work in Dallas, Austin. I worked in New York City for 3 years, San Diego for 1.5 years, and then Fresno for 2.5 years. Okay. All right. Okay. Oh, and now we're coming to a stopping point. So these are just some photos, and then next, the second part of my talk. So we got an introduction to music therapy, and then the second part of my talk, you're going to see some photos, video and audio, hear some stories, and then we'll take questions. So there you go. All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Maryanna. So there is more to come. We're going to go ahead and take a quick coffee break. Before we do so, I wanted to mention one thing that didn't make it onto, well, actually I wanted to mention two things. First of all, today is Bring Your Own Lunch Day. So rather than going to a restaurant, we'll be staying here, setting up some tables. If you remembered or knew about this, you may have brought some lunch. Most of us bring a little bit extra to share. If you didn't know, there will likely be pizza. Tim, are we ordering pizza? Yes, we're ordering pizza. So if you didn't know about it, forgot, whatever, please stick around, continue the conversation with everybody who's here. Or if you have special dietary needs and want to use an app to order something real quick to be here right about noon, you can do that now as well. And then I also wanted to mention the book club. The book club didn't make it into the pamphlet for today. It will be on Wednesday night. I think you guys usually meet at West Gray, Bob, or is this the one that's going to be at your house, or was that the one that was last week? Cafe Express on West Gray. Okay, so you saw Ginger speak up and tell me where they're going to be meeting at. If you are interested in participating in the book club, please go ahead and reach out to Ginger or Ted if he's here today. But if that's something of interest to you, just to converse with some additional folks throughout the year. It's on the website? Okay, it is on the website as well. So, okay, it's everywhere, except in the pamphlet. So let's go ahead and do a 600-second coffee break. 10 minutes. everybody. If you all want to go ahead and grab your seats again, we're going to go ahead and get started, although it always pains me. I've tried to be a polite person, so interrupting everybody's conversation does not come natural to me. But can we just try the regular?
I don't think we played just yet.
All right, I am perfectly well interrupting everybody's conversation now. So, okay, you all, we're going to go ahead and hand the mic back over to Maryanna to finish up her talk. I think there's already been a lot of conversation in between. So if you wanna continue, nope, they're gonna play after your Q&A. Although you already answered questions.
I know. I always think, oh, I'm going to talk, and then I'm going to get to questions at the end, and everyone's going to be like, nope, we're good, but I already had 4 questions over here. So looking forward to that slide. Okay, so for those of you who are just coming in, I did a very quick overview just on what music therapy is and my personal experience with it. And now the second part of my presentation is going to be photos, videos, audio files, examples, because I told you the definition of music therapy and I told you some concepts, but you might still be wondering, like, okay, but what do you actually do? Like, how do you actually use the music, right? So this first slide is now I actually, at one point I had written consent forms for all of these patients, but I've moved across the country twice since then, so to be careful, I put little blue dots on their faces, just so you know. So most of these photos are from music groups that I did with Houston Area Parkinson's Society. So in this one, you can see that we're literally using the drums and other instruments to exercise. You can see over here, I've got, this was like an obstacle course, so I had, along this counter, we had drums and some other instruments, and then we had different stations of instruments, and I would play music, and they would do, so he's doing he has Parkinson's, he's doing a right to left with the music, and then we would stop the music and they would switch stations, and so there would be an up and down station. Sometimes we would do a free-for-all where it's like choose your instrument and play, and it would be so much fun to watch everybody go, okay, I'll hold the drums and you play, and then we'll switch, and then in this group we were using like a stretchy band, and I was giving them, we call it, what do we call it? Patterned sensory enhancement, PSE, which really just means music to encourage specific types of movements. But it's not like, I'm going to play a song and you're going to move. It's like, I'm going to play this rhythm, bum, brum, bum, and you're going to go, like down and back, so it's that kind of stuff. And then these two over here, she was actually attending, I was doing a vocal health and respiratory group with Houston Area Parkinson's Society. And so what we would do is we would do some some breathing exercises at the beginning, then we would do vocal warm-ups to strengthen the throat and vocal muscles, and then we would have kind of like a group sing-along, and we would, discuss, and we'd do little trivia in between for cognitive engagement. And this, she attended the groups weekly, and then after a few weeks let me know, like, hey, just so you know, I'm a professional pianist. If you ever need me for songs that the group doesn't know, I could play them. And I was like, come on, man. So she had been playing, I think she was born, oh man, she was already in her mid-90s by the time this photo was taken. She has since passed away, but I think she was telling me, like, her parents were vaudeville performers, her mom was a pianist, and her dad was an actor, and she had just the most interesting life story. And she came to this respiratory group. She had been coming for years, and then it became a music therapy group, and it became a whole different thing for her. She hadn't played an actual piano, a non-keyboard piano, in a while, and so we started folding that in. I would play my guitar, she would accompany on piano, and the whole group would sing, and it was like a really special sort of. And that's one thing that's cool about music is you go in with a specific goal, a specific technique or plan that you're going to drive, and then you realize there are all these different ways that we can sort of fold different people's needs in and address them. And then, so I really wanted to include her. She was very special. And then this little guy, my little friend Jojo, he has also since passed away, but he, I don't remember exactly what his diagnoses were, but he had spasticity and issues with range of motion and stuff, and so we would use the instruments. That one was on his lap and he was just strumming because it was making him happy, but a lot of times I would hold, he did not have initiation of movement, but when I would, put the banjo in different spots, his arm would go up, even though he didn't have his own initiation and he needed, assistance. So he was one of my in-home weekly buddies that I saw. I worked with him for many years. And okay, all right. The next slide is a video presentation. It's like 3 minutes long. I don't know if I want y'all to watch the whole thing. When I moved to Fresno, I worked at a children's hospital, and they ended up doing a little news segment. And I just thought it would be cool because you could just see me working in the hospital and see some of the patients. So we're just going to watch it. I'm going to try not to talk over it, and, and then I can talk about it a little bit after it's over.
Music has powerful properties and can even help heal. So a local hospital issued a creative prescription for its patients.
Action News anchor Landon Burke
script
learned about
writing
the
very
music
good,
therapy program at Valley Children's Hospital and how it helps patients strengthen their minds and renew their spirits.
Maryanna Sokol is on tour at Valley Children's Hospital. With a rolling cart of musical menageries, she looks to recruit eager young musicians.
First session looks like me coming in with all my tools, just saying, hey, I am a person who works here. I work in child life. Music therapy is something that we offer here. Let me tell you a little about it.
Band practice looks a little different for each child.
We can work on whatever you need. If you just want to have fun today, we can have fun. If you want to relax, we can relax. If you need to get some energy out because you're angry, we can bang on the drums. Does this sound like fun to you?
Once they break the ice and lay down a few beats, Maryanna begins her assessment.
Literally using music as a tool to get to know each other so that I can assess what their needs are, what their family needs are, and how music can best be used to help their experience here.
Music therapy can help make the day-to-day tasks in a hospital more enjoyable by incorporating music into a child's wellness regimen. It can help with pain management and sometimes even lower blood pressure.
Sometimes it looks like this. Other times it looks like going into the gym with physical therapy and literally using the drums for exercise. Like I'll hold the drums in different areas and they'll reach to hit them. Or like if someone needs to work on standing balance or trunk control, then they'll stand up at the table and just play piano for 15 minutes while their PT supports them.
What's unique about these sessions is that, for once, the kids get to do what they want to do.
I can offer them some structure and control in an environment where they do not have a lot of structure and control. And I can come in for 15, 20 minutes, and they know that for that 15 or 20 minutes, they get to make the choices. If they say no to something, I'm gonna go, okay, we don't have to do that.
Some patients at Valley Children's stay for weeks, even months at a time. Spending day after day in the confines of a hospital room is hard, but music makes it a little better. By giving kids control with these tools of expression, Maryanna can provide encouragement and hope. Sometimes that's writing music together. Sometimes it's a no-holds-barred jam session. Other times, it's just being silly.
Most of the time, it's just being silly.
And it's a chance for not just my patients, but their families to see some normalcy, just to see them be a kid.
For these patients, time spent just being a kid is time well spent.
Okay, so, news stories are always a little funny, because they got to write the quippy lines. But the first patient in this video had something called valley fever, which in the Central Valley of California, literally you can have your windows rolled down and you can breathe in spores and then you can be sick for the rest of your life. There's no cure. So she was actually in the hospital for she had to do like 2-month cycles of just like being inpatient for 2 months straight. And so she really, needed encouragement and needed engagement, and her mom needed a break, and so we worked together a lot. And then the second little girl, the one with the halo, you might have noticed I had the bells and we were matching the colors. So the bells were actually supposed to be a motor exercise for her, but then we were matching the colors. That was a cognitive exercise for her. And then, of course, obviously, we were laughing and smiling, and that was bringing her some joy. She also had, she had a series of very long, very complex surgeries. She had that halo on for, I think, 10 months of her life. And she was in and out of the hospital for that 10 months. At one point, I think she stayed with us for 5 months straight. And when actually, she was still in the hospital when I moved back to Texas. And she, after I told her I was moving away and ending my job, she fired me. She didn't really. She fired me because she couldn't believe I was betraying her. But it just speaks to the, I was the only music therapist in that hospital, and we have lots of child life, we have lots of staff and nurses, and not to minimize their roles at all, everybody has a very important role, but she was like, but you're the only one who comes in here every day and like talks to me, like what am I gonna do? And it broke my heart, but to say that she benefited, she definitely benefited while she was in there at least. And then, okay, story time. I'm kind of already on story time. I have a couple little anecdotes that people love to hear and I love to share. So I want to tell y'all about the time when I was working in the Veterans Hospital. I was doing mostly cognitive and social engagement groups. I was doing a lot of memory care. And I had a patient who, he was actually a member of, I can't remember if it was the Hatfields or the McCoys, but he was a member of that family. He was a young child at the time of all the hubbub that happened there. And we weren't sure if that was true. We just knew that his last name was whatever it was and that he would claim that, so we didn't know. And then his Alzheimer's was very advanced and he did not have moments of lucidity very often. But we just happened to be having a cognitive engagement group, and his youngest daughter, who I think was 40 at the time, and she was the youngest of like, I think 8 or 9, and so she was very young among his children. And we were doing a cognitive engagement group, and we sang, I can't even remember what song we sang. It was religious, I think. And the song ended, and he just started talking, and he was like, oh yes, I remember, and started telling a story that was prompted by the song. And his daughter just happened to be observing the group. I had never met her before. I had been working with him for 1.5 years at that point. And he said, oh, yes, I remember. He told the story, and then I looked over at his daughter, and she was crying. Because I was looking at her to be like, is he having a moment of lucidity, or is he just, I don't know. And she said, that's a real story. I haven't heard him tell that story in over 10 years. And she was crying. And all he was doing was sitting in a group, hearing and singing along to a song that just prompted something in his memory. That's one of my favorite stories, because we don't always know with our patients, unless we meet family members, we don't always know where our patients are at their baseline, and we just have to work with who we have in the room. And it's so interesting and beautiful to see family members say, thank you for giving me a moment with my loved one, where they really feel like my loved one again. So. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, more memory care. I did work in a memory and Alzheimer's home on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. I have a lot of stories from there, but I think one that is really special is it was, mostly people in their 70s and beyond, but I did have one patient who I think she was 49 or 50, and she had early onset Alzheimer's. And she was so out of place there because everyone else was so much older than her, and she did not speak. She just didn't verbalize. She could, but she just never did. And she was I always felt like she was overstimulated. I tried to engage with her one-on-one, but I was mostly there to do groups. But anyway, after a few weeks of me going to that place, she started singing along with me one day. I think it was You Are My Sunshine. I mean, it was something very simple. And her nurse shot up from her chair and freaked out and was like, hang on a second, stopped the whole session. And she was like, Miss Rachel, what did you say? And, the patient looked at her, and she said, I said happy. And everyone in the room was like, she hasn't spoken. She's been here for 3 years. So I don't know. We do have... We have research, we have, things of, Methodist even has an fMRI machine that they've been doing research for years, having people go into the fMRI playing preferred music and looking at exactly what their brains are doing. It's a beautiful, magical thing. So let's see, story time. We're going to keep going because I believe, yes. Oh. Okay, so this is a great one. So even though I was at the Children's Hospital for a little over 2 years, it was extremely impactful. So here, this is a great one because this kiddo, he was an oncology patient. He had autism, and he would not let anyone in his room except his family. He would not let anyone talk to him or near him. I don't know what happened the day that I came to offer music therapy, but he let me in his room. He was obsessed with my ukulele, and because he was at the beginning of his oncology journey, he was going to be coming in monthly, and then he was going to be coming in every 3 months. And it got to, when I first met him, he was shy, but he let me engage with him, and then by the time he got to graduate and ring the bell, and by the time his cancer journey was over, he was taking his Legos, we were marking the piano for different songs he wanted to learn. He was using his Legos as, he was doing this like manipulation thing, this fine motor manipulation thing, and this was all led by him, and I was just sort of going along with what he wanted to do, and his parents continued to tell me, you don't understand. He doesn't talk to anybody. He doesn't let anyone near him. He doesn't let anyone talk to him. And I don't think this was me. I think there's something about the music. There's something about the idea that this adult is going to listen to me and let me do fun things and then not force me to do anything if I don't want to. And just within the context of that therapeutic relationship, we were able to grow to this, this spot. The last time I saw him, he was coming in just for an outpatient appointment, and he was so big and so healthy, and he had all his hair back, and he ran to me and hugged me, and I did give him a ukulele. Yes, he ran up to me. And yes, he was verbal. He did communicate verbally. And we also paired with an organization called the Ukulele Kids Club, which if you haven't heard of it, that is an organization. Ooh, I should have put that on my resource list. But they donate ukuleles to children's hospitals for music therapy programs for kids who are doing long stays so that they have a skill to engage with or learn if they're interested. And so I gave him a ukulele, I taught him a little bit, and then, the last time I saw him, he ran up to me screaming, "I still play my ukulele!" And he was so healthy and it was so amazing. I don't know, some of these stories are just so sad. I don't know, I'm gonna cry in the next slide, and I don't know if y'all are too, but maybe we'll just stick with the cute, happy stories. But all 3 of these photos were patient cases that the rest of the staff was struggling, and the patients were in very dire or acute situations, and music unlocked their ability to cope and engage with other staff. And it was just a really beautiful thing to see. So I think next up, yes, okay, so next up we have a heartbeat recording. So one thing that music therapists can do when you're working with hospice, palliative, end-of-life care is we do heartbeat recordings where we will we'll record the heartbeat of the patient, and then we'll use it, we'll either put it into a song that is meaningful to the patient and the family as a gift for the family, or we'll build a new song or a cover of a song around it. I'll record, my own music around it. And due to HIPAA, I can't show you or play for you any of the ones that I do here at Methodist, but this one, this was a patient that I worked with in California, and when I left to move back to Texas, he was still alive, but he died shortly after I moved back. And his family requested and got in touch with me and asked if I could do a heartbeat recording, because the child life specialist had recorded his heartbeat and had gotten permission from them to share it with me so that I could create this project. And his name was Danielito, and he was 2 when I met him. He was 4 when he died. And I worked with him the entire time I was there at the hospital, and his cancer journey had just started when I just started, so we kind of grew together at that hospital. And he was Spanish-speaking only, and he had a little he had a little Jesus doll, like a little Jesus plushie, and Danielito was very shy. His mother spoke English, so she would talk to me, and she would try to be like, look, Maryanna is my friend. You can play with her. It's fine. And he was very shy when I first met him, but the first session where we really had like a breakthrough, what happened was I was playing Jesus Loves Me because I know it in Spanish and English, and he had his Jesus doll, and he got up from his bed and he brought his little Jesus doll over, and he took Jesus's little hand and he started strumming ukulele and shaking his head yes on the Si Cristo me ama. So I do apologize because I realize I'm at Oasis and this is about to be a recording of Jesus Loves Me. But it was a very specific choice for the child because that was the song where we first really connected. And I did the first verse in Spanish because that's his language. I did the second verse in English because that was my language. And then I did the rest of the song in both. And I'm going to play it for you now. This is a pretty good example of what I do for the heartbeat recordings. I'll just X out of it. It's a pretty good example because what I like to do is start with the heartbeat by itself. It fades in, and then the music fades in, and then it becomes part of the music, and then different elements that I'll describe later. Let me see. There it is. Perfect. Thanks. So that instrument is a banjo lele because he loved to strum the ukulele, and that's what I had on hand. So I'm going to talk over the second verse, if that's okay. There was, Daniel was so shy, and there was one day we used to do these music parades on the oncology unit. Every Friday, we would all line up, and the kids would get instruments, and we would just roll around the unit. And he would never participate because he was so shy. But towards the end of my tenure there, and towards the end of his life, there was one day where he was in a Spider-Man outfit, and he was like, he came out of his room, he saw me in the hall, and he screamed, and he grabbed a drum from my hand, and he said in Spanish, I don't remember how to say it, "Mommy, the parade." And I was like, oh, I think he wants to do a parade. His mom said, yeah. And so we weren't planning to do a parade that day, but he was just so vibrant and so excited about it that we did a parade, and the kids saw him going down the hallway and they were like, well, I guess I gotta follow him. And it was like a Pied Piper situation. And so I chose this song for all these reasons, right? But then at the end here, so you're going to hear both English and Spanish together and all the different voices, coming in. That, for me, I felt like was representative of, I told his mom after the fact, this is representative of that day that he came out. And, he was always so shy, but he came out and led the charge, and everyone followed him. And also, taking into account, all of his friends who had died that he had known at the hospital. And so that's all the background voices and everything. That was so I do these heartbeat recordings. We're not just using heartbeat as a rhythm track. We're okay, what was meaningful in this family's journey, and what can I include in that? And then I've had families, come back and tell me months, years later, I listen to it every day. Thank you for giving me a piece of my loved one. I don't know how much time I have left. Yeah. Okay, all right, I'm almost done. So I think I want to, oh, right, that's right, I forgot. There it is. Okay, and we will go back to F11, thank you. Perfect. So I did have one patient at Methodist. I'll see if I can do this really quickly. The heartbeat recordings are mostly for the family, but sometimes they are so beneficial for the patient. I had a patient at Methodist who was a young mother in her 40s, and she was, at the end of her life, she had complications from HIV, AIDS, and some other things. And she was in our ICU for 50 plus days, which is very rare. Usually we try to get people out of the ICU within a week, if possible, really 2 to 3 days. And she was sort of deteriorating in her family. She had 2 young children. She had a 3-year-old and a 12-year-old. And her family had a strong faith, and they felt, they were really struggling with the idea of choosing to go hospice and, you know, withdraw care from her. Because they felt like it was not their power, it should be God's decision. And then they also felt like, well, she has children and we have to answer for this. So I had already been working with her. She had a twin sister, so I decided to do a heartbeat recording for her, and it turned out the song they wanted to use was a song that a cousin of theirs, it was a gospel song about everything's gonna be okay, like God's got this, whatever. And she actually was a vocalist on the song. The cousin had written the song, they had recorded it together, and in the track you can hear her singing all these things, and then at the very end of the song you hear her voice saying, you know what, everything's gonna be okay. And her sister was like, oh, this is totally the song. So I made I took a recording of her heartbeat, made the whole project and brought it into her when she was still alive, and her sister was at her bedside. I brought it in and I said, hey, can I play this for you? They said yes. I put my Bluetooth speaker in the patient's hand so she could feel the vibrations of the music, and we listened to it twice through, and her sister was reminiscing, oh my God, do you remember when you recorded this? And oh my God, our cousin was doing this stupid thing, and oh my God. And then she started to say, you know what, your baby's starting to learn how to talk. He's already saying, Mama, I'm gonna bring this home and tell him that this is Mama. And the patient, after not responding much for the previous several days, smiled and was nodding and sat up taller. And the sister was like, I can't wait to bring this home and show it to your babies. And they're gonna know that that's their mama. And it was a really beautiful session. I left that day, and when I came in the next morning, the patient had passed away on her own. And I had just started. I think I'd been at Methodist for like 2 months when this happened. And I was like, I wonder if I did anything there. Like, and so I called my team, and I was like, I kind of feel like the heartbeat recording helped her like decide to pass away. And they were like, yeah, duh. I was like, oh, I didn't realize it was going to be like that. They're like, yeah, that's why we do this. Like and so you can't really research that. You can't know why someone is able to pass away after a long battle of deteriorating at the end of their life. But in this case, I really felt like having a heartbeat recording, having her sister say, this piece of you is coming home and your baby's going to sing along with you, I think that she was like, okay, I can go. I think. Okay. So I would be remiss to not just really quickly. There are some very unique challenges in a field like music therapy, I'm sure you can imagine. The number one, I would say, misrepresentation in licensure. Currently, licensure is state by state. It's not federal. So in some states, you can just walk into any institution with an instrument and be like, I'm a music therapist. And they'll be like, cool, do music therapy. Yeah, that's not how it works. If you could ever just walk into a facility and get a job. But as I mentioned before, there are sometimes, music is so powerful, it can sometimes have adverse effects. Like one great example is when someone has an active brain bleed, if they listen to music that is familiar and preferred, it will actually promote blood flow in their brain. So you could actually make their brain bleed worse just by playing them their favorite song. And you don't know that unless you have learned or have the experience, so there's that. Varied approaches, like I've been talking about, data-driven, clinical versus emotional and improvisational. It's just music is so versatile that there's no standardization within the field, and so you don't know, when you say I need to hire a music therapist, you don't always know what kind of music therapist you're going to get because there's just a lack of standardization. Oh, various approaches, and then lack of standardization in education throughout the field. So right now the way we have it, most universities provide very specific education. So you have, like I went to a couple schools, but Sam Houston State really promotes neurologic music therapy, the data-driven clinical stuff. And then like on the East Coast, you have a few schools that really are focused on improvisational, guided imagery, that kind of stuff. And so you just have wide chasms in the training of music therapists. Everybody is, you know, qualified, but maybe not necessarily for the place that they wind up in or whatever. So, income sustainability and lack of full-time opportunities. It's a job in music. Speaks for itself. A lot of it is philanthropically funded. A lot, you know, it's hard. I think I put number 6, can be difficult to categorize for job creation and funding. It's just, even with all the science that we can show now, even with research and data, it's difficult to figure out where to place us and sometimes how to get funding. Qualitative research to adequately represent such vast populations and settings. Okay, we have so much research, we have tons of research, and it all shows like music has positive impacts, but there are so many different ways you can use music, so many different types of people who can benefit, that it's almost ridiculous. Like, a lot of studies are like music impacts anxiety. Well, people already know that. We want to see, you know, more interesting studies. Someone was asking me about why do neurons fire like this? Well, we're working on getting that research, but you know, right now research is a whole thing that and then constant community or workplace education and providing rationale. Like I said, like people say to me all the time, so what is music therapy? And they think they're just asking a simple question, but I've been talking for so long already in this presentation. And the main thing that's a struggle there is when you're in a facility like a medical facility and people don't understand why you're there or what you're doing, and you have to constantly show, like you can't just be like, well, watch. You have to provide the rationale and then maybe show them, and that can be a struggle. Our national organization is kind of like America right now. We've got two sides that are really mad at each other, and unfortunately it's negatively impacting our field. Oversaturation and emotional fatigue, this is any helper profession at all. You just have to be really knowledgeable and careful about how to keep yourself, have boundaries, keep yourself protected and taken care of. And then insurance reimbursement, that goes back to funding. We are reimbursable by insurance, depending, but a lot of companies, when they realize that it's music, they don't want to, like we have our own CPT codes to charge, but it's just, you know, that red tape of insurance. So other therapies like occupational, physical, and speech therapy in the hospital, those are all reimbursable, but music therapy is only reimbursable by, I think, 2 insurance plans in Texas, so we just don't even bother with it. And now, okay, so for further reading, and I was telling you, there's further reading here. So I work for the Center for Performing Arts Medicine at Houston Methodist Hospital. I've never even said that. We have 2 departments. We have arts integration, and then we have creative arts therapy. I am a creative arts therapist. Arts integration is more about bringing music to the community. But we have a website. We have a YouTube channel with relaxation playlists. We have Houston Symphony and Houston Grand Opera performances on the YouTube channel. Just lots of information about creative arts therapy. The American Music Therapy Association, though they are infighting right now, there is a lot of great information on their website, musictherapy.org, very easy to remember. There are so many blogs and podcasts these days that are at really high quality that really talk about lots of different aspects of music therapy. I just listed a couple. Musical Health Podcast talks about music therapy in medical settings. Music Therapy Research Blog has not been updated in a few years, but the stuff that it has on there is really compelling. Music Therapy and Beyond Podcast is just another one where they talk about their own careers and then how they've, you know, just the specific ways they've been using music to benefit their populations. And then the Academy of Neurologic Music Therapy, that's nmtacademy.co. That's where you're going to find the information about the neurons firing. It's very information heavy, this website, but if you're really interested in the way that music impacts the brain and promotes neuroplasticity and all that, that's where you go to find that out. And there's so much more reading you can do, but, you know. And then, okay.
Well, unfortunately, we're kind of getting close to time, so we won't have a whole lot of time for questions. Maryanna, are you sticking around a little bit for lunch, maybe? Okay, that will be wonderful. So we can go ahead and Tim and Buddy, if you want to get ready to play a couple more songs. While they're getting ready, just a quick note. It is awesome to see all of you here. I know we have a few first-timers. We are a 501c3 Free thought is not free. It is great to see everybody here. So your participation, of course, is the most important thing. If you are so inclined and have the ability to, we would certainly love a little bit of support to rent the rooms, pay the musicians, etc. So we do have some costs associated with it. If you can help us defray those, that will be wonderful. Are you all ready to take it away with some more music? Oh, yes, Maryanna, I'm so sorry. That was absolutely amazing. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you guys for bringing us in. Great
Thank you.
talk. A lot of
That
that
was
I
great.
did not know. And
Very interesting.
you had mentioned earlier, Verena, about contacting us. We do a lot of private parties and stuff. We do play at Kojak's on 18th Street every once in a while. Houston Folklore Society brings us in once a year. If anyone in here listens to KPFT, do we have any KPFT listeners? My show runs every night. It'll be on tonight at 7 to 8 p.m. It's called Songwriters Studio, and we interview songwriters from all around the country, including Houston. So tune us in from 7 to 8 on Sunday evenings, and thank you very much for bringing us in.
Thank you. So you ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you very much. To close out the show, we're going to do our own arrangement of partially original,
Parsley.
partially not. See if you can figure out what song this is. Third verse ought to give it away.
I might do that. So what do we do?
Thank you very
all.
much.
Thank you very much.
And thanks for bringing
Awesome.
us in.
Thank you all for an incredible musical performance, and thanks again to Maryanna for an amazing talk. I have a few announcements before we all break for lunch. One thing I wanted to point out, if you have any friends or you yourself have children, we do have a supervised kids room for the little ones if they want to spend, don't be here as part of the main presentation. So keep that in mind if you know anybody with children who'd love to come but doesn't feel like there is an option. We do have the kids room. There's a number of things also happening during the week. The Secular Student Alliance hosts Americans United. I believe that's tomorrow from 6 to 7:30 on the U of H campus. More information is on the pamphlet, as well as variety of social media places, so wherever we are, the events will be posted. Of course, the book club that I mentioned earlier. We also have a Northeast Houston monthly social. I think Will is the one who's hosting that, and that is, just if the drive into Houston is a little bit much, feel free to join that. It's once a month on the first Sunday of the month, I think, or yeah. Monthly midweek late brunch. Jennifer hosts this on a monthly basis now. It's just a wonderful opportunity to get together in the middle of the week. That happens the next time on Thursday, April 10th. If you happen to be within the loop or just want to get together for a late lunch at Nico's on 2520 Montrose Boulevard, Thursday, April 10th. And then we have the secular week really the secular month of action coming up. AFDA is part of that as well. We do very strongly believe that human hands solve human problems. We have the opportunity to contribute to our community. There will be a number of different events during that secular week or secular month of action. We'll have a book drive. We'll go to the food bank. We'll be doing a number. Oh, food bank was yesterday. Oh, okay. Okay. So there'll be a number of opportunities to volunteer, give back to the community that we're part of. AFDA is also collecting items to support the New Survivors, New Beginnings group or effort. And so they are collecting shampoos and conditioners and face washes, things for dental hygiene, and a number of other things. We will be collecting them here over the course of April, I think. There'll be a bin outside. Please do contribute to that. We'll also be spending some time in early May putting things together. We'll be doing that as part of our Bring Your Own Lunch. There'll be obviously lunch and then an opportunity to put things together. So please contribute to that. Yes, take a picture of that. And I'm sure that is also going out on social media. And if you're not part, we have a public Facebook group as well as a private Facebook group. If you're not part of the private Facebook group, let one of us know and we'll be sure to get you into that as well. Next week, we have Julie Collier who will come in to share a community moment. Huh? Oh, Jennifer. It will be Jennifer Payton who will give a community moment about the Pasadena ISD book drive. And then our main speaker will be Andrea Murray from MD Anderson. We had her here a couple of months ago talking about how to spot skin cancer. This time, next week, she'll be talking about how to eat for better health. So that should be a pretty interesting talk as well. And we'll have Brightwire here for live music. With that, I think we're about to wrap it up. Now, we're going to be going into Bring Your Own Lunch. We'll need some of the chairs stacked up and in stacks of 5 moved over to the side. We'll need some tables out and chairs around those tables. So anybody who's willing to help with that. So thank you all for coming. Again, many thanks to Maryanna as well as Buddy and Tom. Yes. Thank you all for coming today. It was great seeing you. Bye.
our second time. We played here 2 years ago.